everyone, and welcome to the next episode of What's Your Mess? Mental, Emotional, Social Status of Life. I am your host, Tracey D. Armstrong, and we have another special guest joining us today who's here to tell us something about her triumphs, her resilience, and the strength of overcoming her M.E.S.S. Let's go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience today.
Well, hi, Tracey. I'm Marilyn August. It's so wonderful to be here. Your energy is terrific. My introduction could go on because I'm not exactly a youngster forever and ever, but I'll do my best to give you the Cliff Notes, which has to do with my mess. Right now, what I'm doing is managing lead generation. Technology came and bit me and bit my clients. And I'm a true believer that you have to move with the market. Otherwise, Tracey and I wouldn't be here. We met. That's how we met. And, but I started my business after I was fired from my last corporate training job. I was one of those people that just didn't fit in. And that kind of goes right into my mess. And I developed a program to help other people overcome the adversity that I've been through. And it was 6-week training, and it still exists. And I'm rewriting my book on the psychology of money. And that has been my mess my entire life. So I'm a published out-of-print author, speaker, trainer, and now a LinkedIn marketer. So I've had quite a portfolio career. They have a new word for it now. It's called a portfolio career. Got what I call the divine kick in the butt, and started my training company with knowing absolutely nothing about sales and marketing. I just thought I built the field. And as I say in one of my speeches, I built the field and they did not come. But that's not where my mess started. So kind of wanted to do a little self-intro before I went into my mess, because I've turned my mess into my life purpose.
And that's exactly where we're going today, because I love that you said that you turned your mess into your life purpose. And today I'm hoping that someone listening out in the audience will hear that whatever mess they're going through, they could turn that into a purpose, especially their life's purpose. So let's go ahead and start telling everyone a little bit about your mess.
Do you have 20 years? Just teasing.
We can do another episode too.
Well, I don't know whether to start with. My earliest memories were of my mom and dad arguing about money, and there was never enough. Or the day I walked out of a 10-year marriage with the clothes on my back. I'm having a master's degree, having supported my husband for over 10 years in his business. I remember, and this is now the preface of my book, I remember sitting in that pay by the week room. I lived in Chicago, worked for AAA Chicago Motor Club. That was my first corporate training job. And I don't know how many people on this podcast ever been to Chicago or seen Chicago, but there's a street. I don't know if it's still the same, but on Division Street, there was a bar on every corner. It was kind of seedy, but I found a pay by the week hotel. And I borrowed a car to move out of my home with the clothes on my back and a few boxes. And I sat on those plastic sheets with barely enough money to make it to payday. And I sure hope none of your listeners can relate to this. And I cried my heart out. And I did what I did in those days, is I said, what's the matter with me? What did I do wrong? I was the bad person. And what followed, well, I'd like to say that, life turned around when I got my first major corporate training job, I was on the airplane flying out to California to work for a Japanese auto company who will remain unnamed. And I'd like to say that I read my first self-help book on the airplane going to California because I was determined to fix me. There was something the matter with me. And I walked into the Japanese auto culture as the highest ranking woman in the division who wasn't sleeping with her boss. And I will tell you, I was not ready to cope. I had no clue. I'd never been in that situation where I was suspect just by who I was. I hate to say it, but you probably can relate to that mess. And what followed was a series of corporate training jobs that just kept reinforcing that there was something the matter with me. And I became what you might call a self-help junkie. I went to every training, every guru of the month with money that I didn't have and I couldn't afford. This one was going to fix me. I was a mess. I couldn't hold on to a job. I never had enough money. I was always in debt. And it's like a secret demon that follows you around. It's not polite to talk about money. I say in my speeches, I have very dear, close friends. One person I'm thinking of, I know her entire life story. I know about the men in her life, her kids, everything about her. I don't know how much money she has. Money's still a taboo subject. We don't talk about it in polite company. Mm-hmm. Well, finally, after many years of the self-help journey, I met the man that became my mentor. And I kept talking to Nikki about my problems, and he went through many jobs with me. He was my coach for a long time. And in his program, I built my program, my Money, Health, and Wisdom program, on his life purpose, which is to find the gift in everybody. The program is about your gifts. And I took and adopted 7 lessons and to learn about the inside, the inner game of money. What was going on? What had I been taught? What does culture teach me? So I use a very simple example, for sales. Now, just imagine being a salesperson, and as a kid, you were taught not to talk about money. Salespeople have to do all day. They have to talk about money. So when I developed a sales training, and it's actually a freebie on my website, you can go see it, go for the goal, on how to come over money objections. And it all starts with our own head trash. What's in here? So I'm a work in progress. I am not 100%. I'm terrific. I'm wonderful. I'm resilient. I'm a warrior. And through some very recent messes that I've gone through since COVID, and a reconnection with, well, I don't want to get in too personal, but what I've learned over the last year or so is that I'm not the crazy person, that I have overcome more adversity in my life and taken more risk and been down to my last dollar more than once and kept on keeping on. But I always blamed me. There's an agreement in my program to stop complaining and blaming and worrying. And the person that I blame the most, because I have a vicious critic, is me. So I am still a work in process in, am I enough? Mm-hmm. And if you have a spiritual foundation and you believe in something, I don't care what you believe in. I believe we all came here for purpose. And my purpose is to help, to be a guide to people to live a richly fulfilled life. Because let's face it, in our country, anywhere in the world, if you ain't got the money, you ain't going to be able to do any. I'm sorry for using ain't, but that's my sassy part of me. You aren't going to be able to do any good for anybody.
That's right.
And I truly want good people to have sufficient money to live richly fulfilled. And that's why I came up with richly fulfilled. Because right now, and I'm going to probably stick my foot in my mouth like I usually do, but right now, you know, there's this cultural piece about rich people being greedy. And all you have to do is turn on the news or look at corporate CEO salaries. You're going to pick that up internally. You're going to pick up that having a lot of money makes you greedy and mean. So I dive into these beliefs. And one of my quotes is surround fear with facts. So you don't have to be a rich, greedy, mean person. You can be a rich, generous, kind person. It's not the money that drives the person, it's the person that drives the money. Oh, this has been an exploration of over 20 years. And when I work with salespeople, and I don't just work with salespeople, but when I work with salespeople, I say, look, you're dealing with three things. You're dealing with your own beliefs about money. Gosh, I've got a few thousand of those my own imprinted, and they're imprinted. They're like concrete. And then you've got your prospects' beliefs, and then you've got cultural beliefs like people with lots of money are mean. They're greedy. There's billionaires that aren't paying any taxes. No, that's fact, but you don't have to be that. So did you want to answer this? So my mess is really messy because money is a huge issue for people and it affects every part of our life. So I've taken on my pain, my poverty, my self-worth, if you will, and whatever is being reflected back to me about my belief about who I am, and dealing with being countercultural in saying, okay, I can be rich and I don't have to be greedy. I can be generous. In fact, I make it a practice to be generous with what I have. There was a belief, and it's probably still around, when I was studying this, that having lots of money isn't spiritual.
I've heard that.
And it's a real common belief that you can't be a spiritual person with lots of money. Well, for goodness sakes, how can you contribute to others if you don't have sufficiency?
Exactly.
Can I tell the airplane story? I always tell this story about, so people get over this one. If you go on an airplane and they give the safety instructions, and if I had an audience, but I'll just tell it. The flight attendant comes on and she tells you what to do with the oxygen mask if there's a problem. And the natural inclination for a parent is to put the oxygen mask on their child first. Well, the flight attendant actually has to say, put your own oxygen mask on and then help your child. Because you can't help anybody if you're unconscious.
That's right. You certainly can't.
And you can't help anybody if you don't have enough money.
Facts. And can I go back to that, because I know
sure.
You
There's a lot here.
You unpacked a lot right there. And I want to pause there and I want to go back to that, because you said, I'm over here taking notes. You said that you were down to your last dime, your last penny multiple times. So how did that affect you? Of course, like you're saying, if you don't have money, you're not able to, really take care of yourself, really live a fulfilled life.
Right.
How did you mentally overcome that aspect first with the being down to your last time?
Well, you ask really good questions. No wonder you do this. Why don't you really dug to my core? There's no way to describe the fear. There's just no way to describe it. It's a survival. It's probably going to be painful talking. I panic. I'm paralyzed with panic. A lot of times people, when they don't have money, they're motivated but because of my history and the background and the way I was raised, um, it paralyzes me not having money. And I've had to ask people for money, and people showed up for money and done things I never thought I would do, like that reminds me of a story in my book about borrowing high interest money. I mean, it's a very tough thing to do, but this country does not reward poverty.
Mm.
Uh, so there is a panic, a paralyzing effect, a desperation. I don't know if
Mhm.
there's any words that can really describe what it's like, particularly if you know there is no paycheck coming. If there's a paycheck coming, don't get me started on these payday loans that charge high interest.
That's exactly what I was thinking about when you said it. Go ahead.
Well, sometimes you have no choice.
Mhm.
And the only thing you can do then is not get caught in the spiral. But there's another agreement in my program that says, be creative, open, and flexible to generating and receiving money. So I would encourage people not to panic, not to go where I go, paralyzed with fear. But these days, I recommend a side gig. If you're so you may have to go to one of those payday places, but you know, and I know the faster you pay those back, because they are all the legislation, all the um, interest stuff that was supposed to be controlled, as far as I know, is not. And so you could get into a really, really tough spiral if you have to generate more money. There's no other choice. And I have a friend, actually, a very lovely, very nice gentleman who's very bright. And every once in a while, he starts about talking about starting his own business because he's not happy in his career. And I said, with what's going on in our world right now, I'd stay put and do something on the side and then make the transition rather than me who got the divine kick in the butt. And, you know, one day I had a job, next day I had to buy my own paper. It's too dramatic of a change. So let's face it, when you're getting a payday loan, there's not enough money. And I just did some numbers with somebody the other day, and we were shocked at what her potential is. And the other thing is, don't buy into these. You know, I made $1 million in 90 days. See those ads all over YouTube.
Mhm.
So my book is titled Journey to Wealth and Wisdom, because I worked with a family that lived on the ocean. You probably don't know Laguna Beach, but it's a very expensive place in California, right on the ocean.
Mhm.
They were deeply in debt. The amount of money is irrelevant. Their relationship with money,
Mm.
choices, your priorities. Um, I've worked with very, very wealthy people um, who are using money as a power play. Money is a very complicated subject. It's a lot more complicated than right and wrong.
Mhm.
So obviously, if you're where I was, you have to make more money, dig yourself out. And the faster you can get those paid off and out of that game, the better. But sometimes you've got no choice. It's like the guy was taught coaching that got laid off, and he went and lived with some of his friends, and his friend said, okay, this is temporary. And he was just at that age where he was a little bit older than the job market was looking for. He got very discouraged. He was ready to go live in his car, but he had a 401k sitting there for a rainy day. And I said to him, guess what? You got a rainy day. Oh, well, they're
Mhm.
going to charge me interest and penalties. Well, yeah, they're going to charge you interest and penalties because it's based on the game that you stay at one job and you retire and all that. And it's ancient history. And so some of this is cultural. We'll go back to cultural. It's not your fault that you have to go pay interest and a penalty. You're not going to live in your car when you've got thousands of dollars sitting in a 401k. If it's an
Mhm.
emergency, you've got to go do it. So what I've had to do is do things I've never in my wildest imagination thought I would. Um, I'm not very close with my family. That's an understatement. But sometimes I've had to ask for help. And in my family, asking for help's a sin, and they treat it that way. And so I've had to do things. Bottom line is you've got to get into motion and action. And it's frankly one of the reasons I'm bringing back my book. I'm rewriting my book. I'm a much better writer. It'll come back in book form. In the meantime, I have my motivational quotes. But sometimes you've got to think outside the box. You're a perfect example of that, thinking outside the box.
I'm
So
trying.
you're doing, I'm just an admirer, you know that. I, I wish I had been as smart as you are when I was your age.
Well, as you're talking, I'm listening. I'm like, I did all those things that you said when hitting rock bottom and the payday loans. And I'm like, I'm listening, I'm remembering, and I'm thinking back to those days when I
Mhm.
had to do those things, when I was
That-
with my company. Like, I wanted to ask you about that. Like, you were with the corporate company, and one day you were with the company and the next day you were not. Can you talk a little bit about that for if we have anyone listening that's going through that? Because I know I've been there.
well, like I say, I never quite fit into corporate America. So my last training job, and I've done all kinds of training. I was a technical trainer, a sales trainer, all kinds of training. And a friend offered me a job. That's number one, never take a job from a friend. And it was actually at a credit union, ironically enough. And simultaneous to this, I was working with my mentor, Nikki, developing my program. And there was politics there. And I got fired. I call it the divine kick in the butt. Now, I hadn't been on the job long enough to really get unemployment. Unemployment will not keep food in your house very long. So um, I got poor advice. I was advised by my mentor to start my business since we had been through a series of jobs. He says, you might as well start. You don't have a job. You might as well start your business. And if I had to do it over again, I would have definitely looked for another job and made more of a fuss about the reason they laid me off. They fired me. It was a political thing, and I was just too nice of a girl to really make more of a fuss. So what happened for me is that it was like a freshman year in business. I was able to make ends meet. It was the second year in business that reality hit. And the very first thing I did after getting laid off, after getting fired, uh, was to sign up for a sales training program. Because as I said, I built the field, they did not come. And I don't care. And that is why I really would have recommended getting another job so that you have a steady paycheck. So you're not dependent on your client or the next thing. But it was it's the psychology of, okay, where's the IT department? And oh,
Mhm.
what do you mean? I have to go take this computer in and get it fixed and
I
pay
am
for
the IT department.
you are the IT.
Exactly. You are
Yeah,
all departments.
you are all departments. And I tell the story about, where's the office supply room? Where do I go get my paper? So there's a lot of things with being self-employed that people don't realize. So I don't even remember the question. How did it's I was so excited about doing my program. I just thought people would show up. I just, because you see, particularly now, that's why I'm saying don't listen to all those ads. It's a lot less expensive today to start your own business than it was when I started. But if you know nothing about sales, you're not going to go open some shop and the world's just going to show up.
Mhm.
You have to have a plan. And the other critical thing, Tracy, and I think this would go for your listeners and your viewers, I had a support system. I had a coach I was working with very, very closely. I actually have a business model coaching plan set up for people starting their, say, a consultancy business where they don't need 150,000 views. They need 3 clients to make 6 figures. And so it's doable, but reality is that there's a lot of head trash about how we should earn money. In fact, I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, were you taught when you were growing up that there's one way to earn money? And he said, yes. And I said, me too. And it's called a job.
Mhm.
That's the only way to get money. So if you're not going to be open, creative, and flexible to generate and receive money, then the chances of you being able to be successful without a job, because I have that family, they all have jobs,
Mhm.
or they married somebody very rich. So it's so stereotyped that I'm really the outlier, which is one of the reasons we probably don't get along very well, because I followed my own path. I have
Right.
a framed saying on my behind me that says, "You're not going the wrong way. You're just going the way of your own."
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Yes, that's a good one.
one of
But
my many coaches gave me that. But there,
and that's what I was gonna ask you. That like, and not to cut you off, but I'm thinking about everything you're saying about where you were and where you are now when it comes to talking about money and the wealth and being open and creative and flexible. But like how did you get where you are now from where you were with the being laid off, the being down to your last dollar? How can you help someone understand the money process? And I know you have trainings and courses, but what did you do in order to get to where you are now?
oh gosh, you are really good, Tracy. The truth of the matter is, I left my passion behind because I thought I could do better as a LinkedIn marketer, because technology was affecting my coaching clients. And so I developed an expertise. So what you really need to know, Tracy, is it's not a straight path. I haven't gone from A to B. And I tell people in marketing, marketing is not A equals B. So I picked up a new skill set. But what I did, and I think this is when we first started, for practical reasons, I don't want to say that I got sucked back into, you got to be miserable to make money. And I put a part of my soul aside for over 10 years. And my book went out of print. Those were the days when you had to order books. I watched other people putting online courses up, and I said, I have one. And it was last year that I dusted off my book, and Journey to Wealth and Wisdom, and I'm reworking it. And I looked at it, and I'm going to tell myself, there's several versions sitting on my computer. We didn't have shares like cloud share, and I'm revising it and updating it for today's market. And I'm going to re-release as an ebook and bring back my training program. So I put myself on the shelf. So I don't want to tell your listeners that it's a straight line. I had to move with the market, and the market moved me. And that thing we were just talking about, being creative, open, and flexible. The original language of that agreement that you make with yourself, which is what the program is based in, is personal contracts you make with yourself. It was give up the need to be right about earning and generating and receiving money. And one time I was doing this in person, and one of the people in the audience came up to me and said, Marilyn, I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean need to be right? And I realized that was very subtle. because of this, because we're taught there's a right way and a wrong way. So I changed the wording to be to understand what need to be right is. But so many people are so righteous. So I don't want to give you the illusion this has been a straight path. It hasn't. It takes what your program's about. It's constant inside, going inside. If you don't have a mentor, and I don't like the word coach, a support system, chances of you breaking through your revenue roadblocks are very slight. That's why my company is called Profit GPS, to get you through the revenue roadblocks with less detours on the way and less wasted money. People are spending a bundle a day on millionaire, I call them millionaire in a minute programs. They used to exist when I first started, but they're all over the place now. Just buy this and you too will sell everything. So I think it's important to know that while pain pushes, vision pulls. And what has kept me going was my purpose. I don't want, if I can help, and I have helped thousands of people overcome their low self-esteem. I don't even know if self-esteem is a word that we use, and felt worthy of having richness in their life, then my pain has had meaning. So it's the vision that keeps me going. The possibilities. I've thought about that recently. Why don't I just give up? Why don't I just stick with what I'm doing? Why do I'm constantly creating? I make myself wrong all the time. And what am I doing on a Saturday morning? There's people out there playing tennis, and here I am on a podcast. So you can make yourself wrong, but the vision pulls, which is one of my Marilynisms. Pain pushes, vision pulls. You don't turn the pain into something worthwhile to help other people or help yourself, then you're going to constantly reflect on the pain. You're going to live in the past. And worry is the future. So stop worrying about money, because you can't control the future. Worry is going to drain energy that you could be productive. That's when I said when I'm low on cash like that, when that dollar, the being paralyzed, the fear, and because of where I come from, the shame. I have a tremendous amount of shame. It's a secret demon. Because all the shoulds, I shouldn't be here. I should have done better. I get that reinforced. What's wrong with you? Everybody else, and particularly now, if you go anywhere, everybody looks good, everybody sounds good, everyone's doing wonderful. What's wrong with me? So that creeps in there. I don't want to give the illusion that, I had this big revelation and I'm not a work in process. I'm not one of these people that get up on the stage and said, just do what I do and you too will be a millionaire. It's a journey. That's why my book is called Journey to Wealth and Wisdom. It's constant vigilance, constant going inside. What happened the other day? I was out of nowhere. I'm working with the CEO, and out of nowhere, a third person comes in, his assistant. And now I'm working with his assistant. So I get an email, and the email says, well, Jeff says you and I should meet. Okay. We've been doing everything through email. And here's where my head went to. They're going to fire me. She's going to take over. It's over. What am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? They're going to get rid of me. Why did that come up for me? Why was that triggered? Because in the past, I was fired. They're going to get rid of me. So I'm telling on myself now, because I walk my dog in the morning. So that's my meditation time. I had to work myself through that trigger point that said, now calm down. It could be any one of 100 things. Let's see what she says. And oh, by the way, she's not your boss. And let's go. And what I did is I went on because I use LinkedIn to prospect, and I went on LinkedIn and messaged a half a dozen people just in case. So it wasn't that I wasn't triggered, it's that I knew I was triggered, and that I had to work on myself to get to the point of it ain't necessarily so that that's what's going to happen. Of course, it wasn't. They had questions about the
Mm-hmm.
project. But I'm not going to say the past won't come and bite you.
Right.
But it's a vigilance to understanding your triggers. That's why I've written an article. I can give it to you if you want, on fear of success, because we have a great fear of success given our past history.
Hmm. That's interesting. Fear of success, because most people would think it would be like fear of failure. But some people do fear success because they've been successful and they got comfortable in their success and it didn't necessarily last because of the past. That's very interesting. And I was listening to what you were saying as far as like the shame and the fear and that paralyzed panic. And I'm like, yes, I feel exactly what you're saying, and understanding the triggers and how you work through that trigger, because those thoughts will come up and those thoughts will tell you all types of things. And like that wasn't even the case. They were like, we just need more information. And you had to literally talk yourself down off of that because of the situations that have happened in the past. And I want to ask you that, like, what advice would you give to the audience who may be going through any of those types of situations, whether it be the the being down to their last dime, the being fired or laid off from a corporate job, the divorce, like you said, like all of those things. What advice would you give someone that's saying, what can I do? And like you said, it's not a straight path. There's going to be some twists and some turns, but like, what's one of the first steps that they can do in order to maybe kind of dig themselves out of their mess?
They talk about peeling layers of the onion.
Hmm.
So there has to be a willingness to go beneath the surface, the beliefs to the attitudes, the history, to the causation. So I was able to tell you that in 10 minutes, I realized that I had been triggered. Most people won't realize they had been triggered because they're not willing to believe, to go beneath the intellect. And I use the analogy of an iceberg. Most of what we see in our mind is above is our intellect, is what we see. But buried underneath the water in the subconscious mind, below the surface, are, like I say, imprinted attitudes and beliefs that have come not only from yourself, from your parents, from generations, from culture, from everything you've experienced. And those are lying there like vicious little tidbits willing to attack you. So if you're in that situation, stop. And if you're willing to do some self exploration and get some help, I don't care if it's your minister or a friend or somebody you can talk to, because we're too close to our forest to see our own trees. But it's really, I find today that people are less willing to get beneath the intellect, because the shame is so huge, because it looks like, I had a friend I said that to somebody, and I had a friend remind me, she says, well, yeah, everybody gets on a networking group and they all want to look good. They all want to look like they're successful. Nobody wants to look like they're hurting. But that she said to me, she said, but remember, they wouldn't be there if they were doing that well. So, particularly with video these days, yeah, I had to get gorgeous before I got on here. And you did too. So and look at TikTok. I mean, I saw a woman in the park yesterday doing a photo shoot, and I remember those, she was gorgeous, but she probably didn't think she was gorgeous. but whatever she was doing, it was for the image.
Mhm.
So we all need to look good. And so find a trusted friend. I'm a big believer, and I don't like the word coaching because there's too many amateurs out there. But and I also don't believe in these video programs that give you a lot of content. You need somebody, you need a human being. And if you've got nothing else, your minister or your rabbi or your priest or whatever, or a local helpline, but you can't do it yourself. We make a million decisions, not a million, we make hundreds of decisions a day, and a good part of them about money.
Mhm.
And we can only know what we've been taught.
That's true.
So the how it's not easy. I think the first thing is to give yourself an atta girl or an atta boy that you're surviving. I had a reason not too long ago to make a list for somebody of all the horrible things that have happened to me in my life, all the adversity I've been through. And damn, that list was long. And I was mad about making the list. I don't want to get into the circumstances of it because he might be listening. And then I started, little paragraph or two about each situation. And when I was done with it, I realized I'm not a loser. I'm a warrior.
Ooh, ooh, that's good.
I, while I've survived this. So I think the first thing to do is to give yourself an atta girl or an atta boy. Pause. Definitely pause. There is just no fear. It's survival. If you need a charity help, go get it. Go get whatever you can get and leave the shame in the back seat. You can have your shame, leave it in the back seat, and do what you got to do to take care of today. I find that most vendors for your common bills will work with you. For example, your car financer doesn't want your car. If you can work out something with them, they'd rather have you keep the car.
Mm-hmm. That's
I've,
true.
I was audited once. The IRS is the biggest fear we all have. And so I just have to tell you this story. Talk about fear. I get this letter from the IRS, and you panic time. Talk about panic. And I hired an expert, a guy that knew the inside, and he looked at my tax return, and he realized that the fancy accountant had made a mistake, and it was a home office mistake. He had taken my entire square footage for the home office. And he said, don't worry about this, I'll take care of it. So I called the IRS agent and explained to the IRS what happened and showed him the paperwork. And Marilyn, you got to pay the taxes that and I made a payment plan. And believe it or not, the IRS is very reasonable. They're not going to come to your door. They're not going to take your house. They're not going to take your car. They don't want it. So the biggest fear that we have is all right, what can we do about this? I've got to make a payment arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that right now. So work with the legitimate vendors that will work with you and take care of the things you fear the most.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you have children and you're in that place, that's a whole nother story. Do what you got to do, no matter how ashamed you are of doing it.
That's
Stop the
good.
looking good. Does that make sense?
Yes, stop with the look because a lot of times people are trying to look good and really they're not good. Like you're looking good, but on the inside and in the background, like you said, I like what you said, leave the shame in the back seat, and a lot of times people do put out there an image that they want people to see, but really on the inside, they're not really there. But I know that a lot of your products and some of the things that you promote are there also to help people that may be going through situations, especially with the money. Could you tell everyone a little bit about some of your products that you offer? And I know you have some books and some courses that maybe they can connect with you after this.
Well, sure. Um, Please go to my website, www.profitgps.com. Obviously, you know, www, and fill out the contact form. I have an entire booklet of quotes that I'm happy to send you, motivational quotes for a motivational minute. These were done spontaneously. They are mine. Pain pushes, vision pulls is one of them. And you're more than welcome. Just fill out the form and I will send you that book. If you're in sales, please go to my website. There's Go for the Gold, which is about money, overcoming money objections in the sales process. And I also have a Sales Genius Mastermind for people that really want to dive a little bit deeper. You have to ask me about that because I'm very picky about who I put them in that group. So those are that. And then, you know, keep in touch. Tell me you want, you know, my newsletter and I will let you know when my book is out again. So, and I'm happy to, if you just want to email me, I can be that person that can answer your questions while you're going through this. But my my mission, my purpose in life is for you to break through revenue roadblocks so that this is in, you can go and talk about this is your history. And have a vision, have something that's going to pull you out, that keeps you going when the going gets rough. Because right now, I think the going's rough for a lot of people, and I don't care what the numbers say. The going's rough for a lot of people. And we're going through a lot in this country, like never before. And I've been around a long time. So ignore what they tell you is going on and take care of you the best way you can. But stay as stable as you can. In other words, I don't think this is the time to, my personal opinion, and this is advice that you didn't ask for, is to stay as stable as you can. And this is not a time to take big risks. Time to stay calm and keep on keeping on and take a look inside. The only way you're going to cure this money issue is to take a look inside and change your relationship with yourself, your self-worth, and then your money.
Ooh, I was gonna ask for last words, but I think those right there were some great words of encouragement. And before we wrap up, I just want to thank you so much. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your sharing, your experiences, your words of wisdom. And I'm sure that someone listening out there in the audience, your story is going to have a positive impact on their lives and help them, especially in the money aspect, because that is something that a lot of people still don't talk about. And it is still considered, taboo to talk about money. But again, how can you really survive without money and that emotion that goes with it? But you said change your relationship with yourself. And earlier, though, you said change your relationship with money also. And I thought that that was really key also. So
So they're very,
before we wrap up, go ahead.
I want to say they're very closely tied together.
Yes, they are. And like you said, it's not about the amount of money you have, but like, what are you doing with it? How are you handling it? Because you could still have a large amount and still be in debt. Like, that is so for real. But anything else before we wrap up and I leave you with our outro?
Well, there's a lot I want to say about what you just said about and I forget, just went right out of my head, but I would encourage people to pick up my ebook because there's some inspirational words there, like budgets work just about as well as a diet. So to stop doing things the way you've been taught to do them and start looking for your own journey to wealth and wisdom.
Ooh, that's good. And that's in the book, right? That's in the book. Okay, so I will,
Mhm.
and everyone, I will most definitely, I'll put all the links to get her books, her ebooks, her, the website. It will be at the end. So just keep, go all the way to the end so that you can get all of her information. And again, thank you so much. I really
You're very
appreciate you.
welcome. My pleasure. I just love working with you.
All right. So as we wrap up another episode of What's Your Mess, I want to leave you all with a powerful quote to carry with you as you go throughout your days. If you want to be sad, keep thinking about the past. If you want to be anxious or worried, think about the future. But if you want to be happy, focus on the present day and be grateful for what you have. This is Tracey D. Armstrong. Have a good one, y'all.